It was supposed to be my final night. One last delivery shift before I quit the job for good. My girlfriend had begged me to stop for months. The money wasn't worth it, she said, not after what happened in March. And she was right. I kept the engine running as I sat outside the warehouse, the heat barely cutting through the early winter cold. The place looked dead. Just a squat, concrete cube on the edge of town with no signage and a cracked roll-up door that always looked half-stuck. My dispatcher had told me it was a freezer unit, not much to haul. Just a single package. Final stop, he said. Easy one. The place wasn't on my usual route, though. And the label had no return address, just a single word stamped in all caps across the box, remember. Inside, the air changed. Not cold, wet. Like the walls had been sweating for days. The floors were sticky with old grit and something darker pooled in the corners. No lights worked except for a single buzzing strip over the far end of the hall. That's where the crate waited. It was no ordinary box. Taller than me and wrapped in cloudy plastic, like a body bag stretched over plywood. There was a faint chemical smell, sweet, but sharp enough to sting my eyes. As I got closer, I saw something I hadn't noticed before: condensation on the plastic. Not just from cold. It was breathing. I know how that sounds. I told myself the freezer unit was just faulty, maybe the ventilation system was pushing warm air around. But I couldn't ignore the shape beneath the wrap, rounded at the top, narrowing at the bottom. It looked too organic. Still, I was quitting. I wasn't about to leave without getting paid. So I scanned the barcode on the manifest, hoisted the dolly, and wrestled the thing into the back of my van. The weight was wrong. Not heavy enough. Like whatever was inside had settled. The drive was quiet for the first few miles. But then the heater started blowing cold. The stereo crackled to life and spat out bursts of static between old, slurred gospel hymns. I turned it off. Then I noticed the smell, stronger now. Almost sweet enough to be familiar. At a red light, I checked the rearview mirror. The plastic had begun to slacken, like the thing inside was melting, or maybe moving. The label on the box, remember, kept floating to the front of my mind. I couldn't stop thinking about March. About Ty, the rookie driver I was training, the night he got lost during a similar delivery. Dispatch said he never made it to the final drop. They found the van, engine running, doors wide open. But no Ty. And no package. He'd radioed me just once before he vanished. All he said was, "It knows my name." At the next stoplight, I almost turned the van around. But something stopped me. A sensation like being watched. My ears popped like I was gaining altitude, and I felt this pressure behind my eyes. I looked down and realized my hands were trembling. My knuckles were white around the wheel. Then I heard it. A long, low shift of weight in the back. Followed by a slow, deliberate scrape. Something had moved. I didn't remember turning onto the final street. The headlights cut through the mist like underwater beams. I pulled up to the delivery address, an old house tucked behind a dead garden. Every window was boarded. And still, the porch light was on. The porch steps creaked under my boots, each one slower than the last. I don't know why I didn't just leave. Maybe I needed the final check. Maybe it was pride. Or maybe something else. Something subtler. Like I'd already been chosen. The box sat on the dolly, still wrapped tight in its breathing plastic. It looked smaller now. Not by much, but enough to notice. The boards over the windows had names carved into them. Not painted. Carved. One for every slat. Some were half-sanded, like someone had tried to erase them. But the grooves were still deep. I knocked once. Then twice. No answer. I was about to turn back when the door opened by itself. Just a crack. Just enough to whisper, "Come in." The inside was dark, but not empty. I smelled it before I saw it. Mildew, rot, that same sickly sweet chemical tang from the warehouse. But beneath it, something warmer. Coppery. Like a wound. I rolled the dolly through the doorway, and it caught on something soft. I looked down. A child's drawing. Faded crayon lines showed a family, 3 figures, standing in front of a house with a blue roof. One figure was smaller, with no face. Just a circle where it should have been. And behind them all, a tall shape in black. Just black. No details. The same drawing I used to make when I was a kid. I don't know how I remembered that. I hadn't thought about those old sketches in years. But something about the roof, that exact shade of blue, pulled it back. I used to hide them from my mom. Said they made her nervous. A hallway stretched ahead of me, impossibly long. I could feel the box growing heavier with every foot forward, like I was dragging something alive and reluctant. My breath clouded in front of me, but the air wasn't cold anymore. It was thick. Wet. I didn't notice the walls at first. They were lined with mirrors. Dozens of them, some tall, some cracked, some too cloudy to reflect anything clearly. But as I passed them, I began to see shapes in the glass. Not mine. Not behind me. But beside me. Sometimes just a shoulder. A shadow. Sometimes a face watching from just the edge. One mirror showed the box behind me, except the plastic was gone, and something pale and jointed was pushing at the inside of the crate, like a moth hatching. I ran. The hallway didn't end, it just changed. The mirrors stopped. The walls closed in. Then suddenly I was in a room. Round, windowless. Bare light bulbs swinging overhead. And in the middle, a man in a delivery uniform identical to mine, standing over an open crate. He looked up. He had no eyes. I didn't remember. He whispered. Not until it was too late. I wanted to speak, but my throat clenched. The plastic from the box now covered the floor, crumpled like discarded skin. The box itself lay shattered empty. Then I saw the doll. My childhood toy. The one I lost when I was 6. Bent and burned on one side, with a single black marble for an eye. It was sitting on the edge of the crate, like it had been waiting for me. The man turned, stepping into the shadows. As he vanished, he said, "It comes back until the last piece is returned." Something wet touched my shoulder. I woke up in the driver's seat of the van. Dawn. The box was gone. All that remained was a crayon drawing taped to the dash, 3 figures, a blue-roofed house, and one empty space. My space. And underneath, in shaky letters, just one more delivery. The app said, "No contact drop-off." Simple enough. Just a 20-minute drive across town to leave a parcel at the doorstep of some dilapidated apartment block. It was the 3rd job I'd taken that night, trying to scrape together rent before the end of the month. Normally, I avoid these late ones. After midnight, people get strange. They answer the door too fast. Or not at all. Sometimes they're already standing behind it. But this one was flagged, urgent, in the system, with a bonus for speed. I accepted without looking at the map. That was mistake 1. The route took me through a part of the city I didn't know. Past streetlights that buzzed and blinked like dying fireflies. Sidewalks cracked wide with weeds growing from the seams. The destination, according to GPS, was called the Loring, a half-condemned building squatting behind a chain-link fence. Mistake 2. I didn't turn back when I saw it. The entry was open. The whole front door hung lopsided, like someone had torn it from the hinges and jammed it back on sideways. The lobby smelled like mildew and burnt plastic. My shoes stuck to the floor. Everything was wet, but I couldn't tell from what. I held the parcel close. Small. Dense. Wrapped in craft paper and sealed with old tape. The label just said, Unit 6C. No name. No phone number. Just instructions: do not knock. Leave box, walk away. Do not look back. I found the stairs, since the elevator was broken and yawning open with a thick stench wafting from inside. As I climbed, I noticed something strange. Every landing had a mirror nailed to the wall. Not decorative. Not even clean. Just rectangular sheets of glass, each one slightly warped. When I reached the 6th floor, the hallway felt different. like the air had gone flat. Dead. The walls were painted a color I can only describe as bruised. A gray-purple that absorbed the light. There were only 3 doors on the floor, 6A, 6B, and 6C. The latter had no doorknob. Just a mail slot. The others looked wrong. Like they were drawn on, or repainted one too many times. I approached 6C and crouched to leave the package. As I placed it down, I saw something that stopped me cold. My reflection, in the brass of the mail's slot. Except it wasn't reflecting me. The shape was mine, but the face wasn't. Its eyes were closed. Its mouth was open, like it was screaming, but silent. Frozen. Then the eyes opened. I stumbled back, heart slamming in my chest. The hallway was silent, the door still shut. I tried to laugh it off, but the sound died in my throat. I turned around to leave. That's when I heard the latch click. The box was gone. I didn't hear the door open. I didn't hear it shut. But the parcel was no longer on the floor. All that remained was a wet smear and a small piece of tape stuck to the linoleum. I told myself to keep walking. Down the stairs. Out the door. But something tugged at me, not physically, but inside. A feeling, like something was waiting. I turned, just once, to glance back. Mistake 3. At the far end of the hallway, past 6A and 6B, there was now a 4th door. One I hadn't seen before. No number. It was open just a crack. Enough to see a faint glow. And a hand, pale and thin, beckoning me silently. I blinked. It was gone. But now, the building wouldn't let me leave. The stairs didn't work. I mean, I could walk down them, step after step, but no matter how far I descended, I always came back to the 6th floor. The bruised purple walls, the warped mirrors, and the 3 numbered doors. Except now there were 5. 2 unmarked doors had appeared on either end of the hallway, symmetrical and wrong. I tried calling dispatch, but there was no signal. Just static. My fingers were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. That's when I saw it, the parcel. Somehow it was back, sitting in front of the middle door, 6C, exactly as I'd left it. Only now it was damp. The paper sagged, the tape dark with moisture. It looked like it had been pulled into someone's mouth and spit back out. I backed up toward the stairwell. I didn't care about the job. I just wanted out. Then I heard the whisper. Not a voice, exactly. More like breath exhaled through teeth. It came from behind me, from the stairs. I spun around. Nothing there. But the air moved. A sudden pressure, as if something huge had leaned into the stairwell from above or below, something invisible but real. I turned and ran down the hallway, hoping to find another exit. Any door. Any window. I passed 6B, and a sound came from inside, metal scraping against metal. Like nails on a vent. I didn't stop. I passed the first unmarked door. It had no handle, just a keyhole. From inside, I thought I heard breathing. When I reached the farthest door, I tried it. Locked. Then I saw the mirror beside it. Warped and dirt-streaked, but I caught my reflection clearly, and it moved before I did. I froze. My reflection smiled. I didn't. Then its mouth opened, impossibly wide. Too wide. The glass began to ripple, like water. I turned away, refusing to look again. Another sound. Behind me now. The parcel was gone again. And this time, so were the other doors. There was only one door left on the floor now, 6C. And it was wide open. Inside, the room was unlit, but not dark. The walls seemed to glow faintly, like old wallpaper soaked in radiation. I couldn't see the source of the light. It just was. The smell hit me first, cloying sweetness, like overripe fruit left in a sealed jar. And beneath that, something like ammonia. The room was empty. Except for a mirror. Full length. Spotless. I stepped closer, unwilling, yet moving anyway. My reflection stood there, still and calm. It looked like me. But older. Tired. and behind it, something moved. Not in the mirror. In the room. I spun around. Nothing. But when I looked back at the mirror, my reflection was gone. The mirror showed only the room behind me, and that thing standing there. A figure in the shape of a man, but too tall. Too thin. It had no face, just a blank surface where features should be. And its chest. That's what broke me. Its chest was made of parcel paper. Dozens of small boxes, crushed and layered into its ribs, stitched together with packing tape and black twine. I could see my box there, near its collarbone, with the word, "Remember," written across it. The figure reached toward the mirror, and I felt fingers touch my shoulder. I ran. Through the hallway, down the stairs that now worked again. Out the warped door. Into the cold. When I got back to my car, my phone buzzed. One new delivery. Same building. Same floor. Unit 6C. I never accepted it. But it stayed in the queue. Waiting.it was the silence that tipped me off. Not the usual city quiet. This was deeper. An absence. Like someone had muted the world. No wind. No cars. Not even the hum of the apartment's ventilation system. The order came in at 2:14 a.m. Just one line. Red door. Leave it on the floor. No apartment number. No contact. I should have flagged it. But I was numb that week, working nights to avoid being alone with my thoughts. Anything was better than being in my apartment, staring at that old voicemail I couldn't delete. The building was in a part of the city I barely knew. Old stone, no buzzers. I had to be let in by a tenant carrying laundry, who didn't say a word, just stared at me, squinting like I was backlit. Like he couldn't really see me. Inside, the air changed. The halls were too narrow, too clean. Every door was identical, all painted eggshell white with identical gold numbers. Except one. The red door. Apartment 3D. I felt it before I saw it. Like a warmth pressing from behind the walls. The paint wasn't just red, it was wet. Glossy. I reached out, and my fingers came back clean. But I could swear I felt a pulse under the surface. Like a heartbeat. I set the package down and stepped back. That's when I noticed the peephole. There wasn't one. Instead, there was a tiny, perfect circle of missing paint. No glass. Just an empty black tunnel bored straight through the wood. I couldn't help it. I leaned close. Peered inside. Darkness. Then movement. Something darted past on the other side. Too fast to see. But it wasn't a shadow. Shadows don't make sound. I stepped back fast. The hallway was still empty. But the silence had gotten heavier. More deliberate. Like it was waiting. I turned to leave. And that's when I saw the second red door. At the far end of the hall, past all the white ones. Same white sheen. Same black peephole. But this one was open a crack. I didn't move. But the door did. It creaked wider, slow and steady, revealing only darkness inside. No light. No shapes. Just the same pulse. Like standing next to something alive. Then the door I'd delivered to 3D knocked. I didn't touch it. No one else was in the hallway. But the sound was real. Measured. 3 slow knocks. I backed away until I reached the stairs. As I turned to go, I glanced back one last time. The hallway now had 3 red doors. And the package? Gone. I ran. Down 3 flights. Through the lobby. Onto the street where the noise returned all at once. Sirens, dogs, wind, life. I got in the car and drove until I hit a gas station, locked myself in the bathroom, and sat on the floor trying to slow my breath. The delivery was marked. Completed. I hadn't even scanned it. But here's what broke me. When I got home, my apartment door was red. Same gloss. Same sheen. Same peephole. And taped to the door was a package. The same one I'd left hours before. Only now it had a note scrawled on the side. Second attempt. I didn't go inside. Not at first. I stood there in the hallway, staring at my red door, the package sitting neatly beneath the peephole like it had been placed there by a meticulous hand. My neighbors' doors were still the same, brown wood, brass numbers, a layer of dust. Only mine had changed. I texted my supervisor. No reply. I called the number listed on the delivery manifest. Disconnected. So I just stood there, listening. There was a sound, just beneath hearing. Like wind, but slower. Not quite breathing. Not quite mechanical. I pressed my ear against the package. Nothing. Against the door. Thud. Not loud. Not urgent. Just a dull weight. Like something shifting position on the other side. Not walking. Not pacing. Just adjusting. I backed away and sat at the opposite end of the hallway, watching my own door for hours. Sometime after sunrise, the red started to fade. Not peel. Fade, like it was being absorbed into the wood grain. By noon, it was just a door again. I thought maybe I imagined it. That the shift from night to morning had burned the nightmare away. I even laughed when I opened the door and saw that everything inside was exactly as I'd left it. Except the mirrors. I don't keep many. Just the bathroom one, and the small one in my closet. But both were cracked. Not shattered. Cracked in identical ways, spider webs radiating from a single point, like something had pushed through from the other side. The package was still on the floor. I hadn't brought it in. I don't remember touching it. But it was sitting in the middle of my living room now. I didn't open it. I threw it in the trash outside and took the bag straight to the chute. That night, I bolted the door. Jammed a chair under the handle. Put my dresser in front of it, just in case. At 2:14 a.m., I woke to the sound of knocking. 3 slow knocks. Then silence. I didn't move. I barely breathed. My apartment was dark. I hadn't turned out the lights. I sat up, turned on the lamp. And there it was. The package. On my nightstand. The paper was wet again. I picked it up. It was heavier now. Denser. I turned it over in my hands, heart pounding. No seams. No tape. No way to open it without tearing it apart. So I did. I tore through the paper and found wood. A box, polished dark, like a jewelry case. I lifted the lid. Inside was a mirror. Not just any mirror. The bathroom mirror. Mine. The same cracks. The same grime. I touched it. And I was no longer in my room. I was in the hallway. The same hallway. 3 red doors. And all of them were open now. From the first came the sound of water, distant dripping, like a faucet left on in an abandoned house. From the second, a low growl. Not animal. Not human. Just wrong. From the third, nothing. Just the smell. Sharp and sweet, like rotting flowers and cleaning fluid. I backed away, except I couldn't. My body wouldn't move. Something was holding my ankles. Not tightly. Just enough. The door at the far end, the fourth one, the one that hadn't been there before, opened wide. A voice from inside whispered, "Final attempt." I woke on my floor, covered in sweat. My bedroom window was open. I never opened it. The package was gone. But the peephole in my door now shows nothing. Just a red hallway. Waiting. The call came in at 3:07 a.m. I was the only driver still out. Everyone else had clocked off after the storm started. But I'd been behind on hours and didn't want to lose the contract. The dispatcher said it was a priority reroute. Unusual, but not unheard of. Extra money if I took it immediately. So I did. The address wasn't listed in my GPS. That should have been the first red flag. I had to punch it in manually, using coordinates sent by text. Some private residence off Route 11, way out past the usual delivery zone. I didn't ask questions. That was mistake number 1. The rain hit sideways, blurring the road until it felt like I was driving through a tunnel of static. No streetlights out there. Just wet asphalt and trees that leaned in too close. The package was in the front seat. Plain brown box, unmarked. But I swear, it gave off a smell, something like dust, leather, and copper. I tried rolling the window down, but the storm made that impossible. The deeper I drove, the less the radio worked. It stopped picking up stations, even static. Just silence. Dead air, but too dense, like the world was muffled. Then I noticed the signs. Hand-painted. Nailed to trees. White letters on black wood. The first said, "And no further." The second, "Drive only if known." The third I almost missed, hidden in the rain, "Do not turn around." The GPS dot pulsed once, then vanished. No more route. I thought about calling dispatch, but my phone was dead. Not low battery, dead. I'd charged it an hour ago. The road narrowed into gravel. Then mud. My tires slipped, and I had to crawl forward at walking speed. The trees pressed close on either side. Their branches arched over like a canopy, making it darker than it should have been. Then I saw the house. It was barely visible through the storm, but the porch light was on. Flickering. The driveway was just a dirt loop around a dying elm tree. No car. No mailbox. No doorbell. I pulled up, left the engine running. Package in hand, I walked to the porch. Something about the door felt wrong. The wood had no grain. No nails. It looked carved from a single slab. And it was cold, too cold. I knocked once. No answer. Knocked again. Nothing. Then I turned to leave. The box was gone. Not dropped. Not misplaced. Gone. I stood frozen for what felt like minutes. Then I saw it, sitting neatly on the doormat, as if I'd never picked it up. I reached for it again, and the door opened. Just a crack. No sound. No light beyond it. And a voice from inside whispered, "Are you sure you're not the one being delivered?" I dropped the box and ran. Back to the van. Slammed the door. Threw it into reverse and peeled out onto the muddy road, nearly losing traction. I didn't stop until the house disappeared behind the trees. Then the headlights caught something. Another sign, nailed to a fresh-cut trunk. The paint was still dripping. It said, "You forgot to sign." I didn't stop driving until the road turned familiar again, until the trees thinned out and the highway lines reappeared. But even then, something felt off. It wasn't the storm. That had stopped abruptly, like someone had switched it off. The pavement was still wet, but the sky was clear now. Silent. No frogs, no insects, no cars. Just me. When I finally pulled into a gas station, I didn't get out right away. I just sat there with the engine running, my knuckles still white around the steering wheel. The box was back. On the passenger seat, exactly where I'd left it before getting out at the house. Dry. Unopened. Weightless. I stared at it for a long time before reaching over and touching the edge. No dampness. No heat. It felt like cardboard but thicker. Like something pretending to be cardboard. Then I noticed the seal. It wasn't tape. It was stitched. A black seam running the length of the top, like the spine of a handmade book. The stitches were irregular, long and looping, like someone sewed it shut in the dark. I turned the box over. Someone had written on the underside in black ink, "Sign received." I tossed it onto the floor of the van and got out. The station lights were flickering overhead. The clerk didn't look up when I walked in. He was staring at a monitor behind the counter, security feeds. I glanced over and saw myself, on the screen, standing inside. Only, I wasn't. The version of me on the screen had a different box in hand. Bigger. Dripping. I blinked. Looked at my own hands, empty. When I looked back at the screen, my reflection was smiling. I wasn't. I left. Didn't say a word. By the time I got home, the box was gone again. I didn't ask how. I didn't care. But inside my apartment, everything was changed. Not visibly. Nothing out of place. But the air was thicker. My lights flickered, and the shadows pulled in corners they didn't belong. I went to the mirror and stared, just making sure I was still me. Then I saw the mark. A small, black thread running from my left collarbone toward my chest. I pulled down my shirt. The same stitching. Black thread. Jagged. Like someone had started to sew something shut and stopped halfway through. I tried to cut it, but there was no pain. No blood. It didn't seem embedded in the skin, it was the skin. That night I didn't sleep. At exactly 3:07 a.m., my phone buzzed. It was dead earlier, but now it lit up. One notification. New route assigned. I opened the app. No address. No map. Just a single word. Return. I turned off the phone. Pulled the battery. Smashed it against the kitchen tile. It still buzzed. From the living room, I heard the sound of cardboard tearing. I walked in, and there it was again. The box. Now half open. The stitches were gone. Inside, a mirror. Cracked and dull. I leaned over it, and my reflection looked up. It wasn't me. It was the other me, the one from the gas station screen. The one that smiled. It raised its hand. And my chest itched. I pulled up my shirt. More stitches. Crawling up my chest. Around my ribs. Down my side. Black thread forming a pattern, circles, angles, not random. Something was being built. The phone buzzed once more. Final delivery confirmed. The building wasn't on the map. I only found it by accident, driving circles around the address I'd been given. 1840 Van Ridge Lane. I double-checked the GPS, nothing. Just a blank space where the coordinates pointed. But there it was, tucked behind an overgrown hedge, a squat gray block with a single windowless door and no lights. Like a bunker. It looked abandoned. But my app said, "Deliver inside." I sat in the van a long time before I grabbed the box. It was heavier than expected. Wrapped in plastic wrap pulled tight, like it had been vacuum sealed. No return label. No branding. Just a white card taped to the top, scrawled in pen. To room 101. Do not disturb others. The handle on the front door wasn't locked. It creaked open to a narrow hall lit by a single flickering bulb. There were no signs, no front desk, no mailboxes. Just a row of doors running down a long, carpeted corridor that absorbed sound. My footsteps disappeared into the red fibers. The first door was labeled 101. It had no peephole. Just a small bronze number screwed into the center. I placed the package down, gave it one gentle knock, then turned to leave. That's when I noticed the second hallway. It hadn't been there when I walked in. Same length. Same carpeting. More doors. All numbered, 201, 202, 203, but this wasn't a second floor. It was level with the rest. The building didn't make spatial sense. Still, the corridor tugged at me. My body moved before I could second-guess myself. I followed it past door after door. Each was closed, silent, but the air around them felt charged. Like the moment before lightning. Static on my skin. I don't know how far I walked. Eventually, I realized I was holding a package again. The same one. Same weight. Same plastic wrap. Same note. I hadn't picked it up. I didn't even remember turning around. But there it was, in my arms, like it had been returned to sender. I looked up. The number on the door nearest me, 101. But I hadn't turned around. I'd walked in a straight line. I dropped the box, left it on the floor, and sprinted back the way I came. Every corner turned led me to more hallways. More identical red carpet. More numbered doors. I passed door 101 again. Then 202. Then 101 again. Always 101. Each time it looked slightly different. The door warped a little more. The number scratched. Then smudged. Then backwards. On the fifth pass, it was missing altogether. I pounded on it, hoping someone, anyone, would answer. The door creaked open. Inside was a small, windowless room. Just a cot, a chair, and a box. The same box. I stepped in. I don't know why. Something in the air changed. Like gravity reversed. My head rang with pressure. I turned back toward the hall. The door was gone. The wall behind me was smooth and blank. And now the box on the floor was ticking. I didn't want to touch it. The ticking wasn't loud, more like a heartbeat, slow and rhythmic. But it was coming from inside the box. The same box I'd delivered, over and over, now sitting in the center of this impossible room. The walls were padded. I hadn't noticed that before. Thin, gray padding stretched tight over every surface, floor to ceiling. No seams. No cracks. Just a dull, endless silence. Even my own breathing sounded distant, like I was underwater. The box pulsed once. A soft shift, like it had breathed in. I backed away, pressing into the padded wall behind me, searching for a seam or latch, any sign of a door. Nothing. I looked down. The floor had changed. Carpet. Red. Like the hallway. Just a square, maybe 4 feet wide, in the center of the room, beneath the box. And something else. A brass number nailed into the floorboard, 101. It was the room itself. It had moved with me. The ticking stopped. That's when I heard the whisper. Not outside me, inside. A voice threaded into the folds of my mind. Sign for receipt. My fingers burned. I looked down. A pen was in my hand. No one gave it to me. A clipboard waited beside the box. A sheet of paper, no logo, no address. Just a single line. Room 101 confirms receipt of subject. And beneath it, a blank line for my signature. I didn't sign. I dropped the pen, slammed the box into the wall. Nothing happened. No sound, no damage. The wall absorbed it like foam. I screamed. My voice came out flat, tinny. Like I was shouting into a vacuum. Then I noticed the mirror. It hadn't been there before. A full-length pane of glass, sunken into one wall. I stepped toward it. The room behind my reflection was different. It was my apartment. My real apartment. Bright. Silent. Clean. My reflection stood perfectly still, arms by his sides. Then he smiled. I didn't. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a clipboard. On the paper was my name. Already signed. The door to my apartment opened behind him, and he stepped through, carrying the box. I pounded on the glass. Wait! Don't! But the glass was soft. It rippled. My hand passed through. So I followed. The sensation was like stepping through a wet sheet of plastic, warm, slick, and alive. My ears popped. For a split second, everything blinked white. Then I was in my apartment. Everything looked normal. The kitchen light buzzed. My keys sat on the counter. But I knew something was wrong. The mirror was gone. I checked the door, still locked. Then I saw the delivery app open on my phone, which I hadn't touched in hours. New delivery, room 101. Recipient mirror. The status said. In transit. A knock came from inside my bedroom. Not the hallway. From inside. I walked slowly to the door, heart hammering, and opened it. The room was empty. No windows. No bed. No dresser. Just 4 padded walls. And in the center, the box. Open now. Inside, a mirror. Cracked. Reflecting me. Only I wasn't moving. Just watching. Smiling. Behind me, the door closed. The lights went out. And the app on my phone updated. Final delivery complete.